We are now approaching the last episode. I'm going to put some more of this silver reflected metal on top. And this is like the end of the road. I'm going to put a lot more information on my own. Obviously, this is one of those paintings that's going to take a long time to finish. I say another month or two for me to put in all the little stuff, the minutia. But for the intents and purposes, this is the bulk of the painting. I wouldn't want to bore a studio audience watching me do all the little stuff. But this, for all intents and purposes, is the bulk of the painting. And I'm proud of it. It turned out pretty good. Now, I'm putting in some more of the top. I'm really looking forward to the day when it's done and I can go to the owner, Frank, and say, hey, what do you think? It's going to be interesting. I'm going to walk into his diner someday, and the best thing to do is walk in there at noontime when there's a crowd. Actually, the best thing is to go in there at 8 o'clock in the morning when the morning crowd's there. But I don't want to have maple syrup all over my painting, so what I'll do instead is I'll go there like 11 o'clock. There's chances that most of the people there are well fed by that point. Now, I'm putting in the nice reflective stuff on top. If you might not be able to see it, the camera might not catch the fact that I'm using reflected metal paint. It does cost a little bit more, but the end result is so much striking when you put it next to paint that doesn't have the same reflective quality. And you know, it's kind of hard not to see this because I see the result in front of me. Now here we go. We're going to find one area that's going to be real light, and I'm going to go with the fluorescent white, which is this stuff right here. It's a tough type of paint because unfortunately you can't really do a thin layer with it. So what I'm going to do is just prod along and try to do the best I can. Remember what I said, we're going to make amendments to this as we approach little stuff, detail, which would be boring for you to watch. It might not make for an exciting program. I gave you the best. I gave you the bulk of the building, which is really going to be nice. And I think you're going to get a lot more out of what I showed you today than as if I did go into the minutia of the fine stuff. That would be so darn boring. I'm the artist and I find it to be boring, so I don't want to subject you to that. I love painting, and to me it's not boring. I could do this. I do it 24 hours a day sometimes. I get up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. I beat the birds out of bed. I listen to the first one get up in the morning, start his first little chirp. And then I pretty much get to my business. I like getting up that early because it really is, from my point of view, you have 4 or 5 hours to yourself that are perfect. You don't have anything going in your way. If you had a good night's sleep, I don't sleep that well anyway, so chances are, if I get up at 4 o'clock, it's just a quiet, serene time of day. And I find it very good, conducive to this type of work. All right, the top part of this is pretty much nice and even. We're going to do the fleshing on top. There's some sort of metal. I really don't know what it is, but it's definitely reflective metal. I hate to think that it's some sort of a furnace or something like that. I'm not going to run the risk of saying it because I probably am going to be wrong. I'm just going to put a nice reflected silver tone to it. Pray to God I haven't said something inopportune. I love the fact that this building was made years and years ago, brought up from Wilmington, New York, from an old train yard. The real thing. It's an actual old train, uh, section of a train. That's so rare these days. Let's face it, we have a piece of history in our backyard. And I get a kick out of walking in there and just having lunch in an old stockyard bus, train thing. It's just, to me, it's great. We don't have enough of that left anymore. Now, in fact, a lot of the diners that we go to, they're not really classical diners. They're really makeshift diners. This what we have here in Plainville is the real thing. And I enjoy it. I get a kick out of it. A lot of diners you go throughout the state are really club cars. They're not really classic train. They're makeshift little holes in a wall. But this is the real thing. It's a real train. Club car. It's actually part of a. It was part of a train once. Rare. Now I'm sure they put a brick structure to the bottom of it. No denying that. They encased it, but it's kind of neat. I love it. I can't get enough of it. A lot of the other diners throughout the state are not really true diners. They're kind of makeshift. And they've been plowed up and put throughout the state, but they're not the real thing. I think what we have here in Plainville is the real thing. Now, down to the last couple of, there's a little darkness to this, not much, but I'm going to make a reflective nature. I'm going to put a nice sky. I thought about this. I'm going to put a nice sky in the background. I'm going to put some of Plainville proper in the background. There's a couple old buildings on the far left of this structure. I'm going to put those in. I was thinking about a skyline. This particular view faces the southern exposure. So I'm not going to really do up, obviously there's no sun. That would be incorrect. And I'd have a lot of people on my back if I put a sunset there. The sun never sets in that part of Plainville. Now, we're almost down to the last couple of... I wanted to get some of the pavement in today. That'd be kind of cool. It's going to be a tricky thing too, because pavement. Now, most people think, okay, it's going to be a dark gray. That's too easy to simply say it's dark gray. There's different types of pavement. You have to show a weather-beaten look to it. And to simply go gray, that's kind of boring. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to put a little bit of brown in there, a little bit of raw umber. I'm going to work in with the pencil I put in. Make sure I don't stray from my original design. That's always a good thing to pencil out your work first. Number one, you're almost assured that your original intention was adhered to. You're not making a mockery of your intention. You're really pretty much adhering to it. And I did a real good job doing a pencil of this building. I took a photograph of it. I drew it about 3 or 4 times, so I was very pleased with the end result. Then I painted it. It was not a Sunday afternoon paint job. I didn't just sit there and let my imagination take over my my work. I really, to me, it's important to capture the true essence of a structure, not just let your imagination run wild. That's crazy. Now, we're going down This part of the metal still has a shine to it. This does too. This structure, this part of it, is just a plain white piece of wood that's been painted over. So I'm not going to have a reflective color. I'm going to use just a plain white. Same thing here. This is still metal. We're going to put a little darkness on part of it. I like that effect. The shine's going to come through. Let's make a little darkness on the far end of it. Obviously no light hits that part of it. I'm going to go into that one little area with just white. And I'm not going to use regular white. I want it to be kind of a discolored white, which is what I have here. It's not plain white. It's kind of a slightly paled white. It's not brilliant white. And that's what I want for this. I want it to look like it's been exposed to the sun, to the air around it. So it's not going to be a brilliant white. It's going to be a tired white, if anything. Later on, when I go over this, I actually might put in different tones. Right now, this is what I'm doing. And it almost looks pinkish. That could be because some of the paint on my palette creeped in. That does happen. All right. I think the diner itself is pretty much done. I'm going to try to do some of the pavement in front now. The pavement, I pretty much the color I picked is, again, not true gray. I didn't take the Payne's gray and plop a little bit of water and white. What I did instead, I'm going to get a nice brush for this. Probably you. I'm going to wet this up. The studio has done a nice job of drying it. I'm going to take a little bit of raw umber, which is just a smattering of it. And that way it's not going to be just black and white. There's going to be a little bit of gray to it. I might actually put a little bit more of the Payne's gray just to make it kind of dark. I don't want it to be pitch black, but then again, you got to remember what I initially put down was too dark. This is going to be much better. It's going to be kind of, what you have to do is pay homage to the fact that a lot of people have stepped on this. It's been exposed to a lot of air. The elements have had their due. And this has got all sorts of stuff in it. What I initially put down here was just a little bit too dark. And it seems like I matched it. So I'm going to put a little light in there. Again, the studio has done a good job of drying this completely. So I'm going to just wet it a bit and see if it's a tad lighter. Just a tad, which is good. Later on, if I find that it's not suitable, I could always make amendments to it. It's no big deal. Something like pavement is something you'd always adjust. I know the cement that I use for the walkway, I'm going to definitely put more raw umber into it. Cement and pavement are two different things, and you should not use the same color to make them up. Cement is usually a little bit more pale, and I tend to want to put a little bit more brown into it. I still find it to be a tad too dark. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'll put a little bit of that pale white and see what happens. And perhaps a little bit more of the raw umber. That just might do it. Yep, I like that effect. Yep. Now we're going to bring this down further. Try to make a straight line. That's going to work out nicely. I'm also going to do the same effect with the walkway. I'm going to make it a little bit more. I'm going to put a little tad more brown in there. Cement is not gray. You might think it is, but that's a misnomer. Cement's got a little bit of brownness to it. Let's face it, it's been exposed to all sorts of elements. For you to think that it's brown, or gray for that matter, it's just wrong. It's actually a lot lighter than I made it too. That's the other problem. I made it almost light, almost stone cold gray, and that's just incorrect. Okay, I'd rather make the tar darker. That makes more sense to me. So we're going to try to get as much of that in today as possible. So the diner is actually on solid ground. Nice, as opposed to floating in midair. We're going to bring that all the way out. I'm going to have to make up more of it because I don't think I have enough, but that ain't no problem. We're going to bring it out more and more and see what happens. In the future, I have a couple ideas for things I want to do. Right now, I'm pretty happy with this diner. There are a couple of edifices in Plainville I'm really very happy with the way this painting turned out. There's a couple of structures I'd love to paint. But I also want to get a couple more portraits done. And I'd love to do one or two of them live. It's tough, let me tell you. Painting in front of a camera is not the same as painting at your leisure. And because of the way I paint, I don't slap a pile of paint on a canvas and call it art. It's a little bit more difficult than that. I'm really happy the way this diner turned out. I did justice to a genre that I love. I love diners. I love the whole mysticism behind the diner mentality. It's a whole set of, think about it, all our grandparents went to diners, and we've inherited that love. And it's nationwide. It's not just us. We've kept it alive. Now they're telling us it's not a good place to get our protein. It's actually a lot of fat involved. Well, I think if we watch what we do, we can still maintain a decent lifestyle and on occasion go to a diner. It's not the end of the world. I think if you want to get an original meal these days, that's one of the last places left. As opposed to going to all these joints that claim to be, you know, the food is made fresh. I don't know about that. A diner to me is the last place that food is made fresh, for the most part. The specials are brand new every day. Nothing's trucked in. Nothing is pre-frozen, microwaved. I don't think there's a microwave in this whole place. Thank God. That's turning out pretty good. It's truthful because combined, when you look next to it, if you have it next to the sidewalk, it looks pretty good. I might change it later, but I like it. So we're going to take this all the way down. We're going to take the same color. I'm going to make more of it because unfortunately I didn't make enough of it when I started this. But I'll make some right now. I'm going to take a little bit of the pale white, mix that in, a little bit more of the raw umber, and we'll have enough to keep going to the end of the road. Ooh, how's that? Here we go. Kind of hard to paint a straight line when your arm is bent. But when you consider all the other challenges a person faces in life, it's not exactly insurmountable. And like I said, if it doesn't work out perfect, I can always go back over it later, make amendments. I'm not stuck to it. I love that effect. That is perfectly good pavement. I'm going to bring that all the way down. The thing that's a problem right now, this surface has been, I've had my hand going over it so many times that it's basically got like a sealant over it. Sometimes the human skin adds a kind of an oil over a surface, and that's exactly what's happened. I see the paint just not adhering, but it's getting pretty good. Let's bring it down more and more. The cement itself, the walkway, is going to be lighter. What I'm putting down now is like the tar. It should be a tad darker than the cement. It will be. Everything is just a little bit of a difference. If you put everything the same tone, it would be such a boring world. But every now and then, if you play your cards right, I'm going to have to keep that continuity all through this whole surface. Like, for one thing, you can't have the same color pavement on one side of the diner as opposed to another. It has to be continuous, and I will make sure I do. For now, it's getting real good. Let's bring it all the way down. Yeah, I'm going to have to make more up. So, we're going to take more of the Payne's Gray, more of the raw umber, a little bit more of that pale white, mix it all in there, make the same. You notice that it's not something that comes out of a tube, you have to make it up. That's what I find a lot of my students don't like making up a paint. They'd rather buy something fresh out of a tube and use it. Life is not fresh out of a tube. On occasion, you have to make up a color using existing colors, and you have to pretty much know enough or have enough faith in yourself to make up a color. This diner is full of colors that had to be created for the diner. It wasn't a case where I bought 17 tubes of paint and had one tube per one subject. That would be too darn easy. And that would be a paint by number type of thing. I kind of like creating a specific tone for each segment of a diner. For that matter, a face. When you do a portrait, if you use everything by writ, it would be such a boring painting and hardly original. Now, we're going to bring this down. I think I'm making it a tad too light, but that's not a problem. Now, here we go. I'm going to go all the way down to here. And when I put the cement walkway in, that's going to be a tad lighter. We're almost there. I love the fact that this is turning out pretty good. So, I want to thank everybody again for watching this diner come to life. I hope the owners enjoy this. I'm sure the patrons are going to have fun seeing this on TV and then going inside and having the special of the day. This is going to be interesting. I remember the day when they used to be open at night. Boy, that was such a fun thing to actually go to a diner late at night. But it's not opportune anymore to keep a diner open all hours. You just don't have the clientele. And honestly, there's not the traffic that Plainville used to have. So they depend mostly on morning hours and lunch hours for their economy. It's a sad world, but then again, we don't want too much traffic going through our quiet little town at night, so it works out nicely. Now, let's just bring this all the way down. And we have the entire walkway done. I'm very happy to have done this. I love doing individual sections of our town. I've already done the library, I've done other sections of town. I did Whiting Street a long time ago. I love doing stuff like this. I raised my children up in Plainville, and I'm really proud of this community. It's a nice part of Americana. There we go. The diner is done. I'm going to have to make this sidewalk just a tad lighter, and I'm going to have to make the walkway just a bit. I'll have to put a little raw umber in it to make it look copacetic. It's just a little bit too gray for my taste. Hey, you know, part of making a painting of a landmark is making sure that the coloring is just right. You can't buy a tube of diner color. You have to make it up. You have to make sure it looks plausible. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. Hope Frank and his wife like it. Notice how the paint is kind of, because I've touched this so many times, the paint's not sticking to the surface. It's really drying off a bit. I'm going to make it just a tad darker as I leave this area. This has been one of my favorite paintings to work on. Out of all the things I've done, who would have thought a diner would be something that would leave the most memory and pleasure? And yet, let's face it, the food there has done the same thing. I love this building. Alright, just a little bit more. So many memories, so many things that people have encountered along the years with the diner. For that matter, any part of town.